Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a podcast brought to you by Civic Voice, Inuka Kenya Nisisi and the Elephant, about a national descent now known as the Gen Z Revolution.
My name is Keith Angana, and I usually consider myself a jack of all trades. I'm a writer, I'm a historian, I'm a researcher. Professionally, I'm a quantity surveyor, so I'm also in the construction field, though I have shelved that side of me so much, mostly to focus on the artistic side. And so I'm also the founder and executive director of Kwani, which is a youth collective meant to showcase the work of young creatives. Aside from that, I'm also starting out to be a part-time lecturer at the Drunken Lectures, which is a collective that we formed mostly to allow people to do lectures in public bars.
Ladies and gentlemen, how are you feeling? How are you feeling tonight? Thank you very much. I like this energy. I wish Nairobi had more of this. All right.
And aside from that, I'm also the founder of Bunge la Mayut, which is a collective meant to engage the young people in civic education.
Doesn't we have any other people that we're going to be there, exclude without those people that are already joined?
The story starts initially when I was 10 years old, which is very much recent. That's mostly when I started reading the newspapers actively. And so what I'd like, after reading the newspapers, I usually used to like telling the stories to most of my friends. And eventually that developed into writing. So I used to write, I had a blog where I used to write all the output or everything, most of the things that I had learned from the newspapers. And this spilled over to the time I joined Twitter, which was around 2020. And so I used to share the blogs with most of the people, and at least at the time I built sort of an audience of the readers of my work. And then in 2022, when August 2022 got and the election period, so I met, when I was scrolling through Twitter, I came across a blog by a writer called Oremuka Gichu. It was titled Nairobi, the one with the 7 deadly sins, Nairobi, which was eventually published on The Elephant. It was a very beautiful piece. It was, at the time she just published it on her blog. And when I read it, I was actually amazed by how beautiful the work is. And I was surprised that there is a whole group of many young writers whom aren't recognized out here. So I wondered what could be done for these young writers to get recognition. And so I had, at the time I also had a friend group of writers. And so I approached them and I shared the idea with them that maybe the one thing that we could do in order to maybe platform our work is to just come together and sort of each and every person publishing their work independently in their blogs. Maybe we could pull together our work and compile it into a single book, and I'll publish it, because at least at the time I had also read the works of Kwani, the Kwani with a K, the one that had Kina Binyavangen, Kina Ivona Dhiambo War. And so I decided to maybe that we could take up the model. And actually the first thing we did was try to approach some of the founders at the time, including Mike Mburu, but then he informed us that, well, Kwani was not in existence at the moment. So what we did in order to pay homage to them is that we decided to now start a Kwani with a Q, because of course the K to Q was the new pastiche at the moment, like Kwetu, how Kwetu took up the Q from the K. And so the 8 of us came together and we did a public call out in September 2022. We told any other young writer out there who would love to have their work published that they could just send it to us and then we'll compile it into a book. So we worked on the book from October 2022 all the way to March 2023. And eventually on the 1st of April 2023, we launched it at the Alliance Francaise. It was our first ever anthology. It had 65 pieces from 37 different writers. And during our first ever launch, we actually had 400 people in attendance. So that was our first ever product into the market, and that's how now we got started. That's how Kwani came into existence, through that. As for Bunge la Mayut, yeah, because now there are different initiatives here. So for Bunge la Mayut, the idea for that came in April last year when the first finance bill proposal came up, and so I was able to see the anger that was on Twitter, because each and every person was commenting on the various proposals that were in the bill.
And you wonder why people are making fake alcohol. Because who's going to pay these ridiculous taxations?
Those budgetary approvals were done in Parliament.
They're spending our money without letting us know where it's going, and it's also being pocketed in their pockets by the MPs and the officials.
This is about our lives. This is a matter about our lives, affecting our daily life.
People are complaining about the eco levy, others are complaining about the increase in digital taxes. And so I just wanted a way to now bring all these people together and to have them air their views, because it felt like a time of political reawakening when people are finally taking note of what was happening in the country politically or economically. And so I decided to create an event where people could now come together and share their opinions on what they think is happening in terms of governance. But now, instead of just having it as most of the civic sessions usually are, or most of the public participation sessions are, I decided to have it in terms of a parliamentary model where you have the proposers and the opposers, and then now we table a bill, now like the finance bill, and then now you have the side of the proposers defending why these things should be passed, and the opposers opposing why it shouldn't be passed. And because I believed one of the ways in which people get to learn something is, of course, maybe taking in the stance of a devil's advocate. For example, those who had to defend the finance bill had to read through it and understand what exactly is here, and possibly maybe the background of now why it was being proposed. For example, the background of the eco levy had to do with plastics. And so, of course, they had to read and understand why this was being propped up. And now when they defend it in that session, even the people in the opposers will understand. And so that was the model we took up for the Bunge la Mayut. And we did it for a couple of sessions, including even the doctors' strike. Now for that one, our main focus was the CBA agreement of 2017. And so even for that one, of course, the proposers had to read the CBA 2017 and understand what exactly it says and now use it to argue. And so it was a very good initiative for people to understand whatever is happening. And yes, I think it succeeded in that, because now, 1 month after that, now all the protests happened, and because people had become very much enlightened in that line. And now for the drunken lectures, that started in earlier this year. For you to lecture in a university, you have to have a master's degree, but now not many of us are able to do that, yet we have information that could be shared to other people.
When I was signing up for Twitter, some 15 years ago, something like that, somewhere around there. 14 actually, in 2011 when I was signing up for Twitter. I got the name Megamuya, and it stuck with me. I am an audio engineer by profession,
And one of the other things we look up to at the time was Wahome Mutahi also used to do plays in bars back in the 90s. And so it was a great way to engage the average or the common person, the common mwananchi, instead of just having sort of an elite attending your events. And again, that's one of the things Ngugi wa Thiong'o did with Kamirithu when he took away theatre plays from the Kenya National Theatre and took it to Limuru in Kamirithu. And so even with the drunken lectures, so we wanted to do the same. We wanted to replicate the same by having lectures in bars and just engaging with the usual reveler in the bar, because it will be a great way to informalize the sharing of knowledge and not just nodding out to any other person that you see out there.
So, that is an example of what the mindset of something is.
And then next month we decided to do the same thing, and we had a similar turnout. So we realized that there is an audience, or there is a community of young people who are yearning for something, or who are yearning for a community or things to engage with. So we decided to now spread out, or to burst out of just the creativity scene, and to now look for other activities that we could do to engage this community that had joined us. So at first well, we spread out to musicians and spoken word artists through the open mics. But now for activities that could engage the community, that's when we moved on to the picnics, to the hikes, to the cycling tours, to the karaokes, and yeah. So those were activities that we onboarded into Kwani now, just to build the community that had grown around the artistic things that we were doing at the time.
Hoping that you hear me from wherever you're seated. Tonight I'm gonna live a life, 'cause I'm hoping that you're coming home. I really wish that we could find.
The good thing about them is that all of them have one thing that they fulfill, it's that they provide a platform for people to showcase whatever it is they have. For example, for Kwani, since it's mostly a community for creatives, at least it's a platform for writers, for musicians, for filmmakers, for photographers to showcase their work. For Bunge la Mayut, it's a platform for now people who are getting civically active to showcase, or not necessarily to showcase, but to engage in politics.
We take on a journey to uncover all these tales for pain, for freedom, with a lecture, an introspection, an art exhibition, a music performance, and a panel. In the midst of having a good time, we will reimagine, with history as our lens, what the future might look for us. We are the drunken.
The overarching thing about them all is that at least it's a platform, and that's the thing that motivates me, in that, and I believe one of the things that I am mandated to fulfill in life is to provide a platform for other people to come up. So in the sense that all of them do that, they do fulfill me, and that's what drives me to push on. For the community, since most of the people are young people, most of us are actually graduates. When we actually came to realize how the government is plundering most of the finances in the government, in the economy, so this actually drove most of the people to come out. And with the Bunge la Mayut, we had a session actually just 2 weeks before the eventual protests.
I always ask myself, what is the psyche of a Kenyan? How does a Kenyan voter think? How do they think? Because without that voting pattern, we wouldn't get to where we are. We wouldn't have to question appointments.
We were totally dilapidated of our self-esteem. And that is why, because of that, and unless we handle such issues within ourselves, so that I am able to introduce myself with my second name without this guy.
And so this was something that actually as a community we did together. And so when eventually it was the finance bill was passed, despite all the public participation that we had done, this is something that eyed most of the people in the community. And so even on the first day of the protest, on the 18th of June, many of the people came out to the streets. So most of the people in the community were actually arrested. And this was somehow, well, it spread some fear inside the community, but then we were able to bail each other out, of course due to the fact that we knew each other very well. And that actually motivated us to come out together again in the following days, on the 20th and on the 25th. But then on the 25th, that was actually the fateful day, because most of the people, because there are many fatalities on the streets. But afterwards, of course, the protests were infiltrated by the goons, and well, it became dangerous to go to the streets. But some of the members in the community actually used to come together and go to the streets together and protect each other. And that actually increased I'd say, the political awareness of the community. And even with the series that the Elephant had for journaling Gen Z's revolution, most of the writers now started leaning towards that and started writing political articles. And so that built the knowledge within the community. So the biggest thing that I've learned is actually how organizing generally, even besides events, how organizing generally is a tedious work, and that you have to have a lot of mental and physical strength in it. So one of the main things that we're working on as Bunge la Mayut in preparation for the 2027 elections is getting many people to register to vote, because despite many people being pessimistic about it, votes actually do count in the long term. And so the other thing that we're working on is to get people who can vie, people who are competent enough to vie for the elections.